So, guys, there was a little reveal of an obscure foreign French movie coming out called Star Wars Episode VII: The Force Awakening. Yeah, or Awakens, or Awoke, or... I don't pay attention to subtitles. Just show me Star Wars. Then you get my money. Star Wars. You could make it. You could call it Star Wars Jabba's Tax Evasion, and I'd probably go pay to see it. So, yeah. What do I think about it? Well, of course, you're probably wondering what my opinion is, and by probably wondering, I mean you're not wondering it at all, because you probably weren't expecting a video now. So, I'm probably not on your mind. You're probably moving on, getting into your new apartment, getting a kitty or some kind of possum. You know, a pet, a life, because all the teenagers who watched my videos back in the day, they're now young men with dreams and admirations and bagel bites and Saddam Hussein posters. You know, it's times change. But I'm trying to be here, make videos. So yeah, what was I talking about? Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars. It was pretty popular. I'm not sure if you guys knew that. It still is popular. I would be really interested to see if any person in North America, you know, who isn't like really an immigrant or foreign or comes from some place that doesn't really know much about, you know, Hollywood and all that. I dare someone to say I have never heard of Star Wars and be past 10. Okay? It's a staple, man. Everyone has at least they've heard those two words said together at some point. And there's a new movie coming out, and I gotta admit, I'm pretty pumped. Everything about this seems positive, and I think the great thing is you have someone with a lot of passion and respect for the originals doing this, and that's kind of what filling a lot of people with a new hope. A new hope that wasn't there when The Phantom Menace came out. Because people had high... Like, I mean, Phantom Menace was one of those movies that I was still kind of in elementary school, actually. It was 1999. I was in the tail end of, sort of, I think, grade 6, grade 5, around there. So, I was not really super into Star Wars at the time. I wasn't someone who saw it at a very young age. Because I know a lot of people, they go over this sort of, hey, I have a family now, when do I show the kids Star Wars? It's that part of their development. Like, are you ready for Star Wars? Oh boy, you're gonna love this Star Wars. Yeah, so I wasn't part of that, but I saw bits of it, and I liked bits of it, and I appreciated it much more than I'm older. I actually really didn't watch it in full till I was much older and saw all the work that went into it, and the puppets and all that stuff, and it was really cool stuff. I mean, I really admire when someone uses puppets and animatronics, and I'm not one of those people who says CG is all bad, CG ruined movies. No, I'm not like that. Not one bit. Totally not that one bit. I actually prefer CG for a lot of monster effects over puppetry. There are certain things where I don't think animatronics or puppets would work. So I actually have a lot of respect for CG when it's done effectively. Which is, so yeah, so I'm not one of those people who thinks there can't be any CG in Star Wars or in movies in general. So, yeah, I was impressed by the puppets, I was impressed by a lot of stuff, and just the acting, and it was a fun show. It wasn't like, I think Star Wars is one of those shows that I don't really think is particularly deep science fiction. It's a fun ride type of science fiction with this basic hero story. Well, at least the original trilogy was. I could go into detail about the prequels, but I'm not kind of one of those people who says, the prequels ruined Star Wars. They dealt a blow, but they didn't ruin it because they didn't, like, I guess, I understand actually the beef. I think people's biggest beef about the prequel trilogy is that they have numbers. They have as much relevance in canon by having numbers as the original trilogy, and because they're lumped together, like, I think if it was the original trilogy wasn't 4, 5, and 6, and they didn't start like Phantom Menace as 1, I don't think there would be quite as much backlash, because people would look at the prequels as that other trilogy, not part of the saga. I don't think they'd have the same issues with it if it was just sort of, those were movies, they were interesting, and we moved on. And remember the classics, because they carry that same lineage. Is that the word I'm using right? as the original trilogy, people tend to, I think, treat them a lot harsher and put them under a lot more strict scrutiny. And there is stuff to scrutinize. I definitely get the complaints with the prequels. I have a lot of them myself. But all things considered, I don't think they're the worst thing to come out of Star Wars. Phantom Menace had a lot of issues, and so did Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith wasn't bad. I'm with one of the people who says Revenge of the Sith had a lot of things that redeemed the prequel trilogy. Well, maybe not redeem, because that would imply as a whole it was fixed. It hasn't been like fully redeemed, but there's a good payoff. I will give him credit for that. Best way to describe George Lucas is that he is a terrible writer and director with a fantastic imagination, and that pretty much sums up a lot of the stuff he has total control over. There's stuff in the Star Wars prequel trilogy that I'm like, wow, this is actually a cool idea. Some of these alien races are kind of creative. Some of the tech is really cool. Some of the weapons that they show in the prequel trilogy are really cool and memorable. But in terms of integrating them into a story in a way that makes sense, it kind of hurts. And the best thing to me that came out of the prequels was the Clone Wars cartoon, because to me, the Clone Wars cartoon that ran for like 5 seasons on Cartoon Network, it took a lot of the ideas the prequel trilogy had and expanded upon them in a meaningful way that made me care more about the plot of the prequels. So yes, I am a big fan of the Clone Wars cartoon. Not every episode's a winner. Season 2 is really good. Season 4 and 5 are really good. 3, the first half is terrible. The second half is great. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, oh shoot, I should actually probably make a whole video about the Clone Wars cartoon and why you should watch it. And you shouldn't dismiss it just because it's a cartoon, because honestly, it tells some of the best stories that have at least been put to sort of a cinematic style since the original trilogy, because in many ways, the story arcs in this cartoon feel like Star Wars movies. And some of them are pretty good Star Wars movies, so yeah. If you have a way to watch them on Blu-ray or Netflix, do that. First season has a bit of a shaky start because a lot of the stuff doesn't matter, but it does an okay job at setting the stage and showing off kind of what they're going for. There's some great episodes in season 1, but here, I'm getting way off track. Watch it. So yeah. So time passed. There was this sort of weird period. Like, I think Star Wars is a rightfully jaded community because there's been a lot of stuff that just has felt like a slap in the face in the past. And when you have something as long as Star Wars, such a complicated canon, which Disney simplified recently, and even that causes controversy. There's people arguing about the new canon, even though Disney made it pretty cut and dry, but people always argue certain things should be kept in place, and it's just a mess. It's tricky. That's especially when you have so many books or comics or so much stuff in a universe, it becomes kind of a mess. And usually the way I, put canon together in my mind with any time is just, with any program or series or universes, I just separate things like, this is the story of the movies, this is the story of the books. The books can apply if you care about them applying. If you want them to be it. It's just pretend, it's just imaginary. If what's true and what's not true doesn't matter a whole lot. Just enjoy what you enjoy and don't overthink it. But hey, that's a nerd fandom. You overthink things, I've been a part of a fandom that overthinks magical equines, and yeah. So I've been there, man. I've been there. So, yeah. As for the new trailer, this shows a lot of stuff that gets me pumped. Okay, there's no little kid in the trailer, and there's no cartoon rabbit getting his tongue numbed in a pod racer's electrical current. That's a huge plus. And plus the tone as well as the shots. Like, there's a lot of dynamic camera movement, which I will say is probably one of the biggest blows to the prequels in terms of tone and just general enjoyment of them as movies. There's too much static camera. It's like a soap opera. It's not like you're watching a action adventure movie, which is what Star Wars should be. So yeah, that really hurt them, and immediately in the movie it seems like they're correcting that shot of this Sith warrior going through the snowy forest. There's plenty of movement behind him. The shots of the speeder bikes flying, they're well framed, and they just generally feel like, well, they were shots like of stuff flying. Like if these things existed, they were recording them, and that to me is how CG should feel. For you to believe that this is a ship going to these places, and it was done really effectively. And I gotta give them a lot of credit. It would not look that good if it wasn't being done in the prequels the way they were done. Also advances in the special effects, but even with advances in special effects, I can only give so much leeway to the fact that, hey, the special effects weren't as good, that's why the prequels weren't as good. Well, no, there's more to it than that. You need to frame stuff, you need to shoot it well, you gotta make it seem organic, and that gets the audience pumped. It gets their blood going for like, hey, spaceship, it's taken off. Yeah. So everything about that seemed to be on track. There was a lot of intrigue. We saw characters. We didn't know what these characters are. We saw new droids, and that's always part of the fun of seeing like a trailer for a new Star Wars movie. It's like, oh, what's that droid? Does that droid have a story? Does that droid belong to anyone? What's its name? What's its like serial? What's its code? Look at that clone trooper guy. Wow, he doesn't look like he's a clone of Jango Fett. Who is this new stormtrooper? Is that the stormtroopers are actually like soldiers who commit by choice now? It's not like how it was before? That's interesting, because that really didn't seem very noble to clone people. Yeah, that's one thing I still don't get in the prequels. I know clones are like this necessary to make a fighting force that would equal their enemy, but honestly, I think if you got enough Jedi together, they could probably take down these armies. I mean, they're Superman. They're all Superman. Oh well, so I guess the Sith, though, are also Superman, but I always thought it was kind of sketchy just how comfortable so many Jedi felt with mass-producing essentially human lives for the sole intent of being killed. Yeah, Jedi are kind of weird like that. I get why a lot of people who saw the prequels saw the Jedi as having just as many problems as the Sith, because they were kind of creepy, rigid, cult-like. They didn't have a lot of room. They preached a lot of good ideas, but they still mass-produced clones to work as essentially indentured slaves in war, and they did a lot of other stuff. Shady uses of mind tricks and a corrupt Senate that they just seem to have. Oh, okay, I'm getting way too much into this. There's no shortage of analysis of the prequels to see why things are kind of a mess, but again, this isn't going to be a prequel hate thing. There's a lot to like. I actually like a lot in the prequels. Specific moments. To me, my favorite scenes in the prequels. Okay, I'll pick my favorites from each one. Phantom Menace, the Darth Maul Qui-Gon duel was pretty good. It would have been better if I understood the stakes. That would have made it a really good climax. Episode 2 would have to be the chase through the asteroid belt with those sort of sonic bombs. I really like that scene because it's a Star Wars space battle, but one that didn't really feel like all the Star Wars space battles. And that's one of the things I do like in the prequels, is that I think the space battles still turned out pretty good, because they were trying to show the audience types of space battles we didn't see before. And I gotta give, George Lucas credit for directing this kind of stuff, because hey, even in episode 3, that opening space battle where it's like in the stratosphere close to a planet, that's one of the best space battles in the entire franchise. So yeah. This kind of got off topic. I was kind of giving my whole history of Star Wars and what I liked and what I didn't like. I never really went too much into detail about the new trailer, but I'm just going to say it looks good and I'm pumped. This is going to be a heck of a year. I'm just going to let you guys know it. Disney is a marketing master. Throughout this entire year, this is going to be one of the biggest hype blitzes we have seen in a long time. Think about it. Everything is going to be Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. We're going to see Star Wars commercials. We're going to see Star Wars stuff on ABC because Disney owns it. We're going to see Star Wars on Dancing with the Stars, commercials, toy plugs, so much stuff. We're going to see like promotions in video games and movie theaters, and every single thing under the sun is going to be Star Wars this year. They're going to get us pumped. I'm already pumped. We're all pumped. Can't wait to see this new movie. Everything about it sounds good, and yeah, I trust J.J. Abrams, and he made it clear by his work on Star Trek, he knows Star Wars better than George Lucas.